Hello, it is Bones, and today I'm going to be answering a question from Salty Coda. And that question is, how do you find a neat ending to your story? Meaning like a final battle or something like that. When we're talking about a cool ending, what we are actually talking about is a climax. We need to make that clear because it's important. The active part of an ending is your climax. You're not going to have a neat resolution. And the reason I want to specify this is because when we are building a story, we want our beginning to reflect our ending, right? We want to start in one place, end in another. We typically are going to be following one of the 4 types of stories. It's either going to be a location story, where you start in one place, end in another, or we're going to be talking about an answer story. We start with a question, we end with the answer. We're going to talk about a character story. Your character starts one way, ends a different way, or learns to accept themselves for the way they are. Or we're going to be talking about an event story where the status quo is disrupted and then it is recovered. And so when we're thinking about the reflective nature of beginnings and ends, when I'm discussing how a character starts versus how they end, we are talking about introduction versus resolution. That's where we get to see the change, we get to see the starting bit, we get to see where the character's at, we get to see where they end. The reflective point of a climax is going to be the inciting incident. They are linked, sort of. Like, they're both your biggest explosion. They're both pivotal moments. One is a pivot towards, like, your inciting incident is your pivot towards, like, growth and change. It's the pressure that moves your character towards their adventure, metaphorically or otherwise. And the climax is the pivotal point where your character moves towards resolution. It is a narrowing. It's an explosion that narrows versus like a narrowing that like explodes outward, if that makes sense. I don't know how well that is coming together. Another thing that they share, that they have a lot in common, is they're both very tight little pinch points for your story. And what I mean is that the inciting incident is kind of like where everything funnels outward, right? So it's after you've started a bunch of your main plots, they all will typically explode and fracture at the inciting incident. That's where everything is going to start fraying out, and just from that point on, they like spread outward, right? Whereas the inverse of that is all the plots are going to start coming together for your ending. So when we're thinking about both inciting incidents and endings, to make them exciting, you want to build towards some sort of set piece, a climactic gathering point of all your different plots, and you want to be able to fulfill all of their different needs. Because I often will talk about how if you're writing a character plot, make sure to put obstacles that challenge the character in order to help them grow. If you're writing a location plot, put challenges in the way of them reaching their location. And as we get closer to these points in stories where everything gathers together, you need something that like hits all of the check marks. So if you want something big and exciting at the end, it's not so much about building the most cool set piece and having the most epic battle ever. Like, that's fun, but you also need to be considering all of the little bits that go into it, right? Like, you're going to be wrapping up character plots, you're going to be wrapping up location plots, you're going to be wrapping up event plots. Because if you're starting with a big event, you're going to end with an even bigger event. A lot of the times this is all the characters coming together, but they can also be in separate places, but the story beats can be at similar intensities, right? Like, I'm thinking about the end of The Last Avatar. Like, there's different groups of people doing different things. They're pretty close together, but they all have their own little missions and stories, and they're playing out in tandem. And there's the character plots that are being wrapped up. The villain plots are unraveling because your villain also has like a character arc, right? That's moving kind of inverse of your hero. You know, like your hero is gaining in strength, and eventually your villain is going to lose, typically, and you want it all to happen together. The cool factor of it, having a big set piece to go to, something where everything can gather at, but also not neglecting the fact that just because you make things look cool doesn't mean that they are cool. You know, like, you have to remember every other plot that you're bringing to this ending. You need quiet moments in your otherwise explosive scene so that you can really appreciate the character and their thoughts and their feelings, and really appreciate the impact of what is happening. Final battles are not just about the battle. Battles in general aren't about the battle. There is a story that plays out. Like, there's rhythm to it. There's like an ebb and flow. There's a shift in whether you think one character is winning or losing. And yeah, that would be my advice. All right, so I'm gonna wrap up here, actually, because I'm very exhausted. I've not been getting much sleep. Unrelated to this whole doing tons of comic things, it's mostly the daylight savings times that's like this completely messed up my brain. So like, I'm gonna zone out for a bit. Sorry for a shorter video. I appreciate your watching. Please leave comments down below. If I haven't got to your question and it's been a while, it might just be that like it's a difficult question to answer because I've kept all of them and I'm slowly going through them. I like having some ones that are more like easy for my brain to like. There's some topics where I can just ramble, whereas others I'm like, I really need to think about this. I may need to write things down, and that's why they're taking me time. And like, don't feel bad if you're taking me time. Just leave me more questions. That's all. Thank you again for watching. Yeah, have a good day or night or whatever. You know, time's relative. All right, goodbye.